Welcome to Coming Down the Pipe, ARS Global's podcast about pipeline assets, investments, pipeline construction, and the market in general. ARS is the midstream partner for providing streamlined sourcing solutions, and I'm Josh, and this is
Tyler Williams.
Tyler's grown up in the pipeline business. He's the founder of CPI Pipe and Steel, ARS Global, and several other pipeline-related companies. And today we're here to talk about growing up in pipelines. And Tyler, what we want to get from you today is tell us grassroots how this whole thing started, how basically where you've been, and how we've gotten to where we are today. Give us a little bit of background about yourself and your family and your company.
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Josh. So my parents, my father started in the oilfield tubing business back in 1981. And of course, he made us work at the pipe yard every Saturday and holidays and every summer. And so I grew up kind of in a pipe yard since I was 9 years old. Driving forklifts, and we were in the oilfield tubing. My granddad actually helped my dad and worked for him, and we had threaders and hydrostatic water testers and upsetters and you name it, and did the oilfield tubing business all the way through high school, and graduated high school, went to college for 4 weeks, and it just wasn't for me. I truly enjoyed learning from my dad and my granddad every day in the pipe business, and so came home and started working with them, and we had contracts with Shell and Exxon and buying all their offshore reject tubing, and back in 1984 we joint ventured a line pipe deal with a friend of ours, and it just completely changed everything. It was a total business. Weren't really tied to oil field, and so we switched over to line pipe. And at that time we started CPI started removing pipelines, and ever since 1994. To this date, we've removed 2,500 miles of old transmission lines, predominantly from 12-inch all the way to 36-inch pipe, and about an 8-state area. And when you remove that pipe, you bring it in, you clean the coating off, and rebevel it, fabricate it, and sell it back in the construction, casing, road bore application, dredging, piling, you name it. And that chasing a pipe all over the United States for all the big MLPs and midstream companies, over the years, I saw that instead of just digging pipe, we needed to, see what other pipe was out there. And really probably in about 2010, I really started roaming the country at all their surplus, whether it's new surplus or take up surplus. And that's when I kind of saw the void. Or CPI, it fed CPI in the construction market, but really for line pipe, whether it's take up, new surplus, or really new surplus, I was seeing those bids, and we would all bid. You basically have a scrap number, which is 10% of new, and then you have a construction number, the valuation to the midstream company, which is about 20% of new, and then you have new costs. So there was an 80% yield there that when you have new surplus pipe that's left over from a brand new project, why can't I take one MLP or one midstream company's pipe and sell that to another midstream company, which is what peer-to-peer is, and a market. And so in 2014, I started ARS, which stands for Asset Redeployment Solutions. And it was basically designed to be a peer-to-peer marketing company where we can consignment sell it for the owner, and or purchase the pipe, depending on whatever their accounting thresholds are, or, if they want it gone, or if they've got a little more time to sit on it and hold out for a little more valuation, which will bring them back more of about a 60 or 70% of new cost. And it creates a win-win for the customer. It's inventory that's readily accessible, and they get it at a discount, and then the seller actually recuperates about 40% more back. So that the whole goal was to create a win-win.
Sure. Let's talk about that for a second. When you say it's a win-win, can you talk a little bit more about how ARS helps the contractors and the purchaser of the surplus accelerate their construction timelines? What does it look like from being able to purchase something that's on the ground versus having to go to a manufacturer and say, hey, I need 100 miles of pipe? What do you think on average that time savings is?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think the best way to answer that is I think back really, 20, 30 years ago, companies designed a project and submitted their applications and ordered their pipe. And where I saw the future going was for more regulatory issues is, they design a pipeline and they're going to need to file their permits. And naturally, where things are today and where they have gone is they need to really wait for those permits and then order their product or their materials. And now, once they order their materials may take a year, 6 months, year lead time. So it just pushes everything behind. So having that new prime surplus available and being able to purchase that and speed to market, get it built, is moving forward. That's going to be one of the most important things there is.
Sure. Can you talk a little bit about the cost savings that the purchasers are realizing versus new pipe, and how does that kind of fluctuate with the steel market? We've seen crazy volatility over the last 2 years, but how does the surplus pricing kind of fall in line behind the steel market?
Yeah, so I think the surplus, the prime surplus market is, you can see it, you can feel it, you can touch it, you can take possession of it. You can get it recoded. You can get it to your right of way or get it installed much quicker at anywhere from even if it's 15% cheaper, it can be 15 to 30% cheaper. But you can actually move on your project, get that project behind you, and move on. With commodity prices and where things are going, really ARS, when I created ARS, I envisioned about 5-6 years ago that availability was going to be a major driver behind it, because I believe that these companies, old school companies back in 30, 40 years ago, were a lot of them were owned by mom and pops, and they held a lot of inventory. And the new business curriculum, or whatever you would call it, acronym, they don't want to carry any inventory. If you want it and you need it, they need to build it. And so availability is going to be the major driver in the future. We've seen it over the last couple of years, and you're going to see it even more so in the future, because new private equity or money and or management does not want inventory.
Fair point. And I think one of the things to look at, if you are just kind of adding on to what you're saying, is the reason they don't want inventory is because the longer their inventory sits, unfortunately, the more book value they accumulate, but the less the actual commodity is worth.
That's
because
right.
you start looking at fusion bond epoxy coatings and other coatings that degrade with UV exposure, or you have something sitting in a warehouse where it may be out of warranty, but there's no preventative maintenance programs on, so valves aren't being greased, valves aren't being turned, rotating equipment like pumps are not being rotated. So that's kind of where ARS comes into, because they do offer a storage solution for some of their clients. Can you elaborate a little bit more on some of the things that you've done for clients in the past when they have inventory that they just need a place to park it until their project is ready to come online?
Yeah, sure. So we have 2 storage locations, one in Victoria, Texas, one in Yukon, Oklahoma. Looking to, always thought about adding one, maybe predominantly maybe in Ohio, Northeast. Basically our clients could store their materials at our location. And it could if you think about it, it could go on our marketing platform, our online sales platform, and if somebody is in need of those materials, they may place a bid on it or want to buy it, and at that time the owner of that material gets to evaluate that offer, figure out whether they want to sell it or they actually need to keep it, and so it kind of creates a win-win, and because so much of that material for years just sat in warehouses, and so that material needs, if somebody needs it, if my house is worth $200,000 and somebody drives by and they want to pay me $400,000, well, they can have my house and I'll move, and that's the whole idea. Well, that's the way that's my dad always taught me, is everything's for sale, son.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, it's a new era. And the buy and hold, and you mentioned the coatings and things getting old and degrading. It's just, and then you match that with lead time. So it's everything's coming. It's going to be a whole new path forward, I guess.
Sure. So with all of those things said, where does ARS go from here, and what is ARS looking for in a client, both a buyer but mainly a seller?
Yeah, so I mean is all I ever wanted to create, is the midstream partner. We're very fortunate to work with all the midstream companies. So we hear their strengths, we hear their pain points, and it's how can we help, and what can we create to give them all what I would say less write-downs, availability, opportunity to maybe do things more efficiently, downtime if they need a valve. All right, here it is in our warehouse. Make an offer. It's just be the midstream partner and get in and understand who they are and what their needs are, and then be their partner.
Sure. And what's the ideal transaction size, or what are the transactions and inventory that ARS is looking to purchase?
Yeah, it's really on ARS side. We only have so many people and so much time, and it's more specific. What I've always said is you can take any inventory list, and you can have $200 million worth of inventory, and 80% of that value is 20% of the actual items. So we really need to focus on the larger items. The smaller items are a lot of times liquidated through auction networks or whatnot. Sure. But those 80% of those, 80% of the value is 20% of that inventory list. As far as itemized out is where that customer needs the help to market availability and try to maximize their return to minimize their write down. But really moving forward, in any project or actual purchase, the available funding that we can secure is not going to say unlimited, but it's very good, and we will look at anything.
Okay. Great. Well, Tyler, I think we're about out of time. Our red light's going off. So
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Well, you and I just talk too much.
I mean, we do. we can talk all day, but thank you for coming down to Houston from OKC and joining us. I know that podcast attendee is not in your title, but
Yep.
Thank you for coming down, and thank you guys for watching our second episode of Coming Down the Pipe. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next month.
Absolutely. Thank you.